Off to you, Senator. You have the floor.
Okay, I have some questions in respect to Brisbane and Adelaide airports. Was cross-crewing introduced into the Brisbane ARFF in September of 2018?
Senator Jason Harfwit, Chief Executive Officer. If I heard correctly, was that whether cross-crewing was...
In Brisbane, September 2018?
Yes, it was.
Does this change effectively drop available crew size from 17 on duty to 14?
Senator, it has the appropriate category for...
It's a simple question, Mr Harfield. Does it drop it from 17 to 14?
Previously there was 17, but it's now staffed at 14 as per the regulations.
How many staff are on duty in Sydney and Melbourne as we speak?
17.
How many staff are in Perth and Brisbane as we speak?
14.
Okay, so how does that reconcile with evidence you gave to the February estimates where you would say, while Mr Wolf comes to the table, I can make it clear there is no intention to change our provision of first aid at all on an aerodrome because the firefighting service is just first aid equipped, it's not paramedic. Secondly, fires on the airfield, whether or not they're aircraft fires, will need to be responded to by aviation rescue and firefighting services. There is no change to that at all.
That's correct, Senator.
But there is change in September of 2018. We're going from 17 down to 14.
Senator, Brisbane Airport is a Category 9 station. It is staffed to Category 10 levels when there are A380 movements from time to time. And so therefore the required Category 10 staffing is 14, which is 3 officers and 11 firefighters. Sydney and Melbourne are Cat 10 stations 24 hours a day. They also have a domestic response vehicle which does the extra first aid, which is staffed separately, but it's also provided at Brisbane, but it's staffed within the existing crew.
You have a Miss Bennett, Executive General Manager, Aviation, Rescue and Fire Services?
Not here. She's actually transferred to a new position.
She's no longer with you?
No, she's with their services, but she has another Executive General Manager role.
So her evidence was, as Mr Harfield said, there is no intention from a provision of service perspective to change anything in relation to the way we provided first aid services or our attention to any other emergency on the aerodrome for the last 20 years. And I said, so you are cross-crewing, is that correct, Miss Bennett? No, we don't plan to cross-crew. In Brisbane, if that's what you're referring to, we run both of these staffing models. How does that evidence reconcile with what's happening in Brisbane?
Senator, I'd have to take it on notice to ask Ms Bennett exactly what context that she said that in.
So it's Hansard quote back to you. So
no, I understand that, Senator, but the service that has been provided at Brisbane, the service levels, in accordance and with the appropriate staffing that is required under the CASA regulations, is no different then as it is today. So we provide exactly the same service, and we still provide
I
the first aid
understand you can
service.
talk underwater, Mr Harfield. I just want to ask some questions. Yep. We've got them on the record. If ARFF respond during Category 10 movements, staffing in Perth and Brisbane could be as low as 2 officers and 9 firefighters available. Is that correct?
Senator, it would depend on the circumstances.
Is that correct? It's possible that it could be 11
It is possible.
People. If a crew is committed to a fire or a fire alarm or first aid call in the in areas of the terminal, there will not be a full complement of crew within 2 to 3 minute response times of the runway. So if people are engaged elsewhere in the terminal, you can't meet your 2 to 3 minute response time.
Senator, the response time is that there is a certain element, and I may have this incorrect, but it's not the full 100% have to respond by the 2 to 3 minutes, with the rest of it after a certain time. So there is still the capacity for a full response.
Prior to this change, there would have been the ability to handle both scenarios?
Senator, there is the ability to handle that scenario prior as it is now.
Are you meeting CASA requirements?
Yes, we are.
And I've highlighted to you that Ms Bennett said there was no risk of Brisbane Airport operating without a full complement of crew.
And that still exists today. They still have a full complement of crew for the required and appropriate level of staffing and service.
Okay, so I'd like you to just review the Hansard and review the statements you've made here today and just assure the committee on notice that you haven't misled the Senate.
I have not misled the Senate, Senator.
Because what's the evidence there, in particular where it says, no, we don't plan to cross-crew, and the first question you answered here is, yes, we have cross-crewed, and the reality is that those two statements are at odds with each other.
Senator, as I said, that I would review on what Ms Bennett said in the right context, but however, the service level at Brisbane is no different to what it is prior to our change in rostering in September. Brisbane Airport has actually changed its operation where it was a Cat 10 station 24 hours a day. The A380 movements have reduced to 1 or 2 movements a day, and so it is a Category 9 station where we staff to Category 10 during those movements.
I don't want to find out if you're wrong, Mr Harfield, through an emergency at Brisbane Airport. These are factual things. There are regulations in place. Evidence has been given, and it'll be reviewed. Now, in Adelaide Airport, that's currently a Category 7 crew overnight.
That's my understanding, Senator.
2 officers and 4 firefighters.
Correct.
Which means they can respond. With 2 aviation vehicles. Is that a safe response? Is that how it works?
Senator, can you just say that last bit again?
So there are 2 officers and 4 firefighters. Can they handle 2 aviation vehicles in a required?
That's my understanding, Senator.
Are you intending to downgrade to Category 5 crew levels overnight? 1 officer and 2 firefighters?
Senator, I'm unaware, but just let me refer.
That's what's on our operating certificate, Cat 5.
Senator, I've just been advised that our operating certificate that's oversighted by CASA says that it's actually Cat 5 overnight because there's a curfew in Adelaide.
Because, you know, it's freight planes, emergencies, whatever, it's a curfew port, but there are freighter planes and that operate at night.
Yes, there is.
There are still aircraft
at
night.
Sorry?
There are still aircraft operating despite the curfew.
Absolutely, Senator. Can I just explain that the category level that the firefighters are depending on the type of aeroplane that are operating at the time?
So you're downgrading to 1 officer and 2 firefighters overnight. Is that a sufficient crew to be deployed in the event of an intervention being required?
Senator, for the type of aircraft that are operating at the airport during those curfew hours and according to what's required under the regulations, yes it is.
Okay, but it's a plane and it may have a problem, okay? So the next question
But there's still a response and there's still a crew to respond to.
Exactly.
Because the category is about the number of agents.
I didn't ask that question. Sure. You've told me what I want to know. That's Category 5, which is 1 and 2. So internationally accepted minimum standards of deployment using breathing apparatuses are for 2. 1 to responding into the fire and 2 out, ready to enter and rescue. So a plane's a plane, whether it's in the middle of the day or the middle of the night. The contention here is that internationally accepted standards are that you need 2 vehicles. You can't do it with 1. You can't have 1 fighting the fire and then no one doing the rescue, or someone doing the rescue and no one fighting the fire. Do you reject those international standards?
No, I don't, Senator.
Then why are we ending up with 1 and 2 instead of 2 and 4?
We're certified by CASA for the standard of service, and we have to operate to the level that is provided under the certificate. And if the certificate allows us to go to Cat 5, that's assessment that's appropriate. I'm not sure of what and I'm not familiar with the current Australian regulations in regard to that.
Okay, I'll run through some more questions. So is it Air Services who's downgraded Adelaide Airport from Category 7 to Category 5 at night? Have you done that? How does it work? How do you go from 7 to 5?
Senator, I ask Mr Oakley to come to the table, but we're in the process of looking at it, and we have to do an assessment in regards to the staffing, the risk, and what operations are at the airport. But I'll ask Mr Oakley to just explain.